How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Criterion Comments with Gray 1951. That's me. And tonight I'd like to talk to you about not a film, but a TV series called Fishing with John. Fishing with John, which I guess played in 1991, 1992 for one season, 6 episodes. Started out on the Independent Film Channel and then played for a while on Bravo. Now, up until recently, I didn't even know this existed. So I need to thank a couple of my YouTube friends for telling me about it. Um, Back about a month ago, I did a video where I talked about um, what I've been watching lately, DVD and Blu-ray update. And one of the films I talked about was a Jim Jarmusch film called Down by Law, starring John Lurie and Tom Waits. And I watched it for the first time and just really loved it. So it started a little bit of a discussion. And one of my friends, a guy named Colt Item, told me that there was a show called Fishing with John out on Criterion. And about the same time, another friend of mine named Dixieland Farm, his first name is Chris, told me the same thing. Now, I started doing a little bit of research about John Lurie, and because I wanted to know more about him. Up until I had seen Down by Law, the only thing I knew about John Lurie was the film Stranger Than Paradise, which of course was also directed by Jim Jarmusch back in 83, 84, I believe. And a film that I loved, really thought it was wonderful. And so when I finally got around to seeing Down by Law all these years later, and John Lurie was so good in it, so different than he was in Stranger Than Paradise, that I started becoming interested in seeing what else he had done. So I found more information about him, and about the same time that I found out from those two guys that there was a Criterion episode of this, I was finding some of the film clips on YouTube from this. And I thought, what is all this about? John Lurie is sitting out on a boat with Tom Waits in the middle of a lake and they're fishing. What the hell is all this about? So I immediately went to the Criterion website and sent away for this. I'm so glad that I did. This is about as off the wall as it could possibly get. And I don't want to give too many things away because it's full of little surprises and just such great fun that I don't want to spoil it for anybody. But okay, I think the best way to do this, I do this a lot in my videos, but if you read something on the back of the case, it usually gives you the whole gist, the whole atmosphere of what it is you're getting into. So, all right, John Lurie knows absolutely nothing about fishing, but that doesn't stop him from undertaking the adventure of a lifetime on Fishing with John, traveling with his special guests to the most exotic and dangerous places on Earth. John Lurie battles sharks with Jim Jarmusch off the coast of, or the tip of Long Island. Goes ice fishing with Willem Dafoe at Maine's northernmost point. Braves the Costa Rican jungle with Matt Dillon. Takes Tom Waits to Jamaica and searches for the elusive giant squid with Dennis Hopper in Thailand. So that's what it's all about. 6 episodes, and the last 2 are a part 1, part 2 compilation with Dennis Hopper in Thailand. And this is so much fun. The idea, I guess, John Lurie wanted to do sort of a parody, a takeoff, or maybe even a tribute to some of those cable TV fishing shows that seem to play at 4 or 5 in the morning when only insomniacs are still up watching television. And I remember seeing a couple of these things back in the day when I used to have a lot of cable channels. There was something called Championship Fishing, which was about as relaxing as you could possibly get. Just a couple of guys sitting out in a boat in the middle of a lake or a river someplace, usually someplace very normal, occasionally in some exotic location. And they were just fishing and talking and chatting, and there was a lot of silence, a lot of quiet moments, and just watching the water and things like that. And every once in a while, this male narrator would chime in with some comment talking about what the guys were doing and what was going to happen next and all that sort of thing. And it reminded me a lot of actually going fishing back when I was a kid. I haven't been fishing since I was in high school. I used to go with my dad all the time, including ice fishing, which is not one of my favorite things to do. But yeah, I did all that stuff, and it's the most relaxing thing in the world. So being with these hipster guys in places like Jamaica and Costa Rica and Thailand, you know, John Lurie is probably, I don't know, he's just this tall, lanky musician, writer who the last person in the world you would imagine would be sitting in a boat with Dennis Hopper, baiting a hook. And the whole thing is just really cool. And they also have a narrator that comes in, this guy named Rob Webb, who I guess was a professional narrator. And he has a voice like he probably worked for some of those fishing shows, and he will just sort of very, very quietly tell you what's going on and what these guys are doing. And every once in a while, he'll throw in some bizarre non sequitur like, these are real men doing real things. What? Did he really just say that? Or, I would love a bite of your sandwich. You find yourself wondering, am I imagining all this? And then at the end of the ice fishing, which is really, really hard to take. I mean, Willem Dafoe and John are up they're freezing their asses off in weather that's 28 below zero. They're trying to survive in this shack that they build out of pieces of debris, pieces of wood that doesn't really keep out the cold, and they're all freezing to death and starving because they're not catching any fish. And at the end of the program, the narrator says very quietly, let's see, where exactly is that quote? Oh, yes. On January 19th, John Lurie and Willem Dafoe died of starvation. And that's the end of the program, which they didn't really, but very cool. So it gets you into the friendships and the personalities of all these different guys. And I guess, it looks like John Lurie and Jim Jarmusch are pretty close. They get along really well. He and Tom Waits were also very close friends, but Tom Waits was not happy being out on the water in Jamaica, and I guess he got very, very seasick. And at the end of the program, he was very upset with John Lurie. They had to edit out a lot of stuff that didn't come off as being very, male bonding like. And supposedly, according to the commentary that John Lurie did on that program, Tom Waits was so angry with John at the end of it that he did not speak to him for 2 years. And then in the third episode, John Lurie is flying down to Costa Rica in this very small plane with Matt Dillon, and both of them are just terrified because this guy flying it is just going all over the place, and just watching it is enough to make me go queasy. And I guess Matt Dillon was one of the most difficult people to deal with because he was very laconic and he just didn't have a lot to say. And there were a lot of moments where John Lurie was just getting very frustrated and trying to find ways to get the conversation and the friendship going, and Matt Dillon just wasn't responding. But he seemed to get along very well with Willem Dafoe, and especially with Dennis Hopper. Dennis Hopper is a very cool guy. From these two episodes, they seem to get along really well. Dennis Hopper is probably even more off the wall than John Lurie, and they seem to have a good time together. Now, of all these locations that they went to, the only one that I thought I would really love to see this was Thailand. It just looked absolutely beautiful. The water, the scenery, the beautiful temples that are out in the middle of the woods, even what they showed of the city of Bangkok, I guess it's a huge city. It really looked pretty. And it just, yeah. And I'm not one who cares about traveling. I really don't travel. It's way too much trouble. I mean, I go up to Chicago about once a year, and it's exhausting. I have to go to bed for about 3 days when it's over. But if there were any place in the world that I would like to go where I wouldn't get overexhausted and it would be too much trouble, it would be Thailand. So if that makes any sense at all, then you might enjoy watching this show. Not too many extra features. Like I said, there were commentaries by John Lurie on each episode. And the only other thing, there's a music video where John Lurie's jazz group, which is called the Lounge Lizards, and they do a song called Big Heart, where they were performing in it's a live performance that they were doing somewhere, but they filmed a video. They acted it out with all dancing and all kinds of cool stuff in Sardinia of all places. I don't know why they went there, but yeah, I'm very anxious to get some music of John Lurie's group. And I guess John Lurie is now he's in his 60s, and I found out that the guy suffers from chronic Lyme disease, which basically takes away most of his energy, and he's pretty much homebound. So he doesn't do music anymore, and he doesn't do acting, but he is also a painter, so he concentrates on his artwork, and he has a website where he sells his work. So that's what he does now, and maybe hopefully someday he'll get his health back and he'll be a little more active. But yeah, very interesting person. And Fishing with John, this is so off the wall. I highly recommend it. So anyway, all right. Thank you for watching, and I will talk to you later. Let me know what you think about this. Thanks again to Dixieland Farm and Cult Item. You guys are the best. Take care.